The Dream Theater. As we mentioned earlier, the primordial motive that underpins the behavior of all living beings is the need to somehow independently manage one's life. Any purposeful activity or process can be largely described as an attempt to control individual reality. Anything that happens in life can always be reduced to one and the same task: to establish control over one's immediate environment. So in this paradigm, what does God do? The answer to this question is obvious and requires no proof. Creating and shaping reality is the goal and purpose of all life. No one would doubt God's leading function. The only question is, how does he do it? From the moment that pendulums of religion began distorting the very notions of God, everything related to God became surrounded in a strange and paradoxical mystery. God does exist apparently, but no one has ever seen him. On the one hand, God rules the world, and on the other, his activity is not directly evident. So we conclude that he is, but he is not, and yet he is. The paradox of this situation enables the pendulums to interpret and exploit the notions of God in any way they see fit. Without going into too much detail, the main reason for the distortion of God's true essence is a series of substitutes that have been brought about by religion. Serving God has been replaced with worship, and the obvious nature of his existence has been replaced with blind faith. Pendulums have declared man powerless in contradistinction to God's omnipotence. Man's primordial divine essence has been reduced to nothing, thereby annihilating his former connection with the Creator. Humanity is like a child separated from its true origins, made to forget its purpose and power as co-creator with the highest creator. People are told that they cannot shape their own destiny and must honor God from a distance, worshiping him as an idol. They are taught that they are powerless with no rights and that their lives are controlled by a strict and merciless parent who demands blind obedience. Under the influence of pendulums, people are stripped of meaningful service and reduced to mere servitude. This isn't limited to religious pendulums. Atheism is also a kind of religion, but works in reverse. Faith becomes ignorance, ignorance becomes denial, and denial becomes outright rejection. Regardless of the worldview, the result is the same. Religion places fate in God's hands, while atheism hands it over to chance or circumstances which people are taught to struggle against. In both cases, people are reduced to puppets, either waiting for God's mercy through prayer or fighting endlessly against obstacles, believing nothing comes without struggle. As long as you act within the limits of inner intention, you remain controlled by pendulums and circumstances. You always receive what you choose. If you believe that life is like a dense forest, you'll keep stumbling over fallen trees. But if you dare to believe that you can reach the sky, you'll soar above the forest and fly freely. The only thing holding you back is you. You won't believe you can receive everything effortlessly through outer intention unless you accept your divine essence. This is difficult because the concept of God has been distorted. The Creator has been turned into a ruler, a judge who rewards, punishes, commands, and supposedly takes care of his subjects. But in reality, we don't see this. Instead, there's injustice and abuse of power. The righteous suffer while wrongdoers go unpunished. Justice rarely prevails, and prayers often go unanswered. To explain this contradiction, pendulum followers twist events to fit their idea of God. They say things like, "It's God's will," or "Justice will come when we stand before him." It's as if people are seen as misbehaving little children, free to cause trouble now, but destined for harsh punishment later. If you put all speculation to one side, what is God's real intention? To answer this question, we will not guess or philosophize, but simply state the fact that the intention of every living being, one way or another, is to control their reality, not judging, dealing out justice, fulfilling wishes and requests, not rewarding according to merit or punishing, not ruling over people or looking after them. The control of reality is what it's really all about. No one can do anything that God does not want them to do. Everything is really under his control. It is just that he does not rule in a centralized fashion, sitting high up on a throne, but through all living beings. Could God really rule the world if he existed somewhere outside of it? And therefore, every living being carries a particle of God, and so the intention of an individual being cannot fail to coincide with the intention of God. God placed a part of himself, a soul, in every living being, giving them the ability to shape reality through their consciousness. Everything from humans to minerals possess some level of consciousness. Humans are at the highest level, but even stones have their own form of life, existing in a different time scale. All things in reality play a role in shaping it. Rivers carve their beds, mountains rise, and deserts and forests compete for space. Each has a portion of consciousness and strives to influence its reality. The higher the consciousness, the greater the power to shape and control it. Take plants, for example. Plants are a commonplace part of our lives, and yet they're also quite mysterious. No one would deny that plants are living, but few would consider them alive in the full sense of the word. People see plants as soulless biological material, incapable of feeling and awareness of self and others. This, however, is a huge misconception. Plants have their own type of nervous system. Their cells exchange electric potentials. These incredible beings can, in their own way, see, hear, feel, taste, and perceive smell. Moreover, they can communicate with each other, and they have the capacity for memory, analysis, and even concern. Cleve Baxter, a CIA interrogation specialist, conducted famous experiments with plants using a polygraph. In one test, 2 people interacted with a plant. One damaged it by breaking its stem and tearing leaves, while the other cared for it and spoke kindly. The plant learned to recognize them. When the bad person entered the room, the plant screamed, shown by sharp rises on the polygraph. When the kind person approached, the plant calmed down. Baxter concluded that plants can sense electromagnetic fluctuations and even thoughts. In one case, just thinking about harming the plant caused a strong reaction. His experiments were repeated by other researchers and consistently showed the same results. Baxter went on experimenting until the end, expanding his theory of non-human consciousness to encompass chicken eggs and even sperm, forever finding more proof of what he called the fundamental attunement between living things. In one lab, a houseplant showed signs of what we might call love. A female assistant who cared for the plant and spoke gently to it noticed it purred with delight when she watered it. The plant reacted joyfully whenever she entered the room, but ignored other staff. Surprisingly, the plant also showed signs of jealousy. If the assistant flirted with someone else, the plant displayed behavior resembling depression. This is a good time as any for a quote break. Never go to a doctor whose office plants have died. Irma Bombeck. It's not just plants. DNA also shows primitive responses. Research has found that energy from DNA molecules carries not only structural information, but also what could be called a mood. When DNA is comfortable, its energy is calm. If the environment heats up, the DNA screams in response to the stress. When the temperature gets too high, the molecules are destroyed and they die. The most surprising discovery is that even after DNA is destroyed, its death screams continue to be detected for 40 days as phantom radiation, even though the molecules are no longer physically present. Plants cannot cry out loud, assert their rights, or express their feelings, but they have a soul and can experience both suffering and delight. Unlike humans, plants exist in a deep sleep, much like someone who smiles at a kind voice or frowns at a harsh sound while dreaming. These gentle dreamers provide life, beauty, and sustenance, asking for nothing in return. Plants can feel love when we care for them and express gratitude through their fruits. It's humbling to consider what they might feel when harmed. What does a tree feel when someone breaks its branches? Fear, pain, or insult? Can we imagine the terror of a tree as an axe approaches, or the suffering as its life fades away? We will never truly understand what plants feel, these silent witnesses to human cruelty. We can only hope their deep sleep spares them from suffering as acutely as creatures higher up the consciousness ladder. While the world is a place where life sustains itself on other life, this does not grant anyone the right to assume only they have a soul or awareness, nor the right to treat others with neglect or disdain. There is a reason why in cultures that have not yet been spoiled by pendulum civilizations, the people ask for forgiveness before killing an animal or cutting down a tree. Followers of Buddhism, for example, always look where they're walking to avoid unintentionally squashing an insect, or will avoid treading on the grass if there is a path they can walk on. All living things deserve respect, and in this world, everything has equal rights. Compared to other beings on this planet, humans are only partly awake. Life itself is a kind of dream, and we're surrounded by dreaming beings. Each one lives its own dream, striving for something, wanting something with its own purpose and rights. But why? Asks the human, who sees themselves as the pinnacle of perfection. The answer lies in striving. This drive fuels evolution. Evolution is God's chosen method for creating and shaping reality. Evolution is the manner of creation shaping reality chosen by God Himself. The idea of evolution is relatively new. It was once believed that the world remained unchanged as God originally created it. Evolution is simply a gradual process where small changes build up over time, leading to significant transformations. Charles Darwin was the first to explain evolution in biology. He proposed that evolution is driven by genetic variation and natural selection. Variation creates new traits in organisms, and genetics preserves them. In the struggle for survival, the fittest organisms are more likely to thrive and pass on their traits. Darwin's theory works, and yet it overlooks one major question: what determines variation? Natural selection and genetics eliminate or preserve various traits as accomplished facts. But where do these traits come from? What causes them to appear in the first place? Why does a species grow fins, claws, fur, horns, etc. when they did not have them previously? In evolution, one can observe jumps, lapses, backward movement, and the appearance of fundamentally new forms which, from the point of view of an ordered picture of evolution, defy explanation. For example, it has proved impossible to establish a chain of development for the emergence of organs of sight. How did we end up with the capacity for sight? Sight represents a jump in evolution, a fundamental change that must have been more than a mere random development. And what of the origins of life? Should we conclude that one day the genetic code for life just happened to appear as pure coincidence? In the transurfing model, variation is shaped by intention. Every living being creates its own layer of reality, including itself. The drive to control reality includes adapting and improving to interact effectively with the environment. This universal intention can be summed up as, I strive to exist and act in ways that help me effectively control reality. This intention activates corresponding sectors in the alt space, leading to the emergence of new traits in the physical world. For instance, early bird species had claws on their wings to climb trees. Before learning to fly, they likely climbed trees to take off and glide down. The ability to climb was useful, but limited. Adding the ability to glide made controlling reality more effective. The ultimate goal became, I fly freely. This intention gradually materialized new alternatives in reality, each an improvement. Over many generations, this intention shaped sectors where wings became increasingly perfected for flight. Evolution involves both destructive and creative processes guided by the two pendulum laws. Pendulums play both destructive and stabilizing roles. Their constant struggle leads to one species replacing another or even causing extinction. At the same time, pendulums synchronize the intentions of individual organisms, ensuring the same traits evolve within a species. How else would the same traits develop in the population of a single species across an extensive geographical habitat? All development in the material world results from the interaction of internal and external factors like the intentions of individual beings and the influence of pendulums. This is how God creates and governs reality through the combined intentions of all living things. Our world is a theater of dreams where God is the audience, writer, director, and actor all at once. As the audience, he watches the play unfold on the stage of the world. As an actor, he lives and feels everything experienced by the beings he embodies. God's purpose seems to be to explore and experience everything possible in this kaleidoscope of dreams. So why is it that there's so much injustice and tragedy in the play? Why does he let this happen? As you know, pendulums are the worldwide source of evil, but does he really endorse their existence? There are no answers to these questions. God's motives are known only to him. We can only state the fact that as writer and director, he gives the play the opportunity to unfold freely in accordance with the intention of the participants. Each player makes their contribution to shaping the reality, as a result of which the overall picture is compiled. God's dream, his individual manifestations in the form of all living beings. The unanswered questions don't really matter. What's important is this: God has given every living being the freedom and power to shape their reality through their consciousness. With low awareness, life becomes an unconscious dream where the dreamer feels powerless and controlled by circumstances. With higher awareness, life becomes a conscious dream shaped and directed by intention. Everyone has the freedom to choose, but few use it. Evolution takes so long because most beings don't use intention consciously or constructively. In unconscious dreaming, they vaguely want something but don't know what. Their intention becomes unclear, unfocused, and ineffective. In this way, humans haven't advanced much beyond animals. Pendulums have not only weakened their ability to shape reality with thought, but have also erased the knowledge that it's possible. Trapped in destructive pendulum games, people experience outer intention as it fulfills their negative attitudes and worst fears. Beyond this, they're confined to inner intention, achieving goals only through enormous effort. A person with relatively high level of awareness is capable of escaping the circle and transforming their life into a lucid dream in which reality is subject not only to direct influence, but to their will also. If there is a particle of God in each and every one of us, it means that our intention is also the intention of God. By shaping our reality with the power of intention, we fulfill the will of God. When you express an intention, consider it to be God's intention. How then could you have any doubt it will be fulfilled? And all you have to do for this to be is simply claim your right to it. Do not ask, do not demand, do not struggle, just create. Shape your own reality with the help of conscious intention. Would God really ask himself for something to be given to him? Is there anyone alive from whom God would demand something for himself? God just takes whatever he wants. When you pray to God, it is exactly the same as if God were praying to himself. When you ask God for something, it is the same as if you were asking yourself for it. You are praying to yourself and asking of yourself. If your intention aligns with God's, then your fears and doubts come from him too. He gave you the freedom to choose. It's your choice to take the tough path where you struggle and face obstacles. This happens because you believe nothing comes easily and you receive exactly what you believe. Is God powerless that he needs to struggle? Of course not. He doesn't fight reality. He simply shapes it as he wishes. People can do the same if they accept it's possible. So what's stopping you from waking up in the dream and reclaiming your ability to shape reality? If you are ready, dear maker, the rest is just a matter of principles. The next part of this training will teach you how.